I've been enjoying a series of lectures by Hillsdale College. They have a whole slew of stuff right here on YouTube with all kinds of guest speakers and whatnot, but I've got more time for such activities, and especially in the wintertime. And I've really been enjoying a guy named Victor Davis Hanson. This guy's got a big old brain on him. I mean, he can talk at length with detail and accurate detail about current events, about past events, about historical figures, about war and conflicts and this and that and the other thing. And apparently with no notes, and he can give you the languages and the names of the towns and the leaders and who was involved in the logistics and all this stuff is fascinating. Big brain on this dude. Well, one of the recent, somewhat recent to me because I just saw it, one of these focuses of his lecture was General George S. Patton, historically significant figure. He was in World War I, he was in World War II, and he was a brilliant tactical and logistical mind when it came to military conflict and warfare. The trouble with that is nobody liked him. By all accounts, he was a pretty clumsy guy, and he had this kind of, I hate to use the word knack, but he had this kind of knack for misadventure in his personal life. He caught his face on fire trying to get something out of his eye, and he was using a lantern to see by, and blew up, burned the whole side of his face. I think he stabbed himself in the leg once. He might have shot himself. I can't remember. Even his death, Patton's death we're talking about, was a mishap, going at a slow rate of speed, driving down a road in Germany or something. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. Now, I knew some things about Patton. I've been kind of unpacking World War II because there's so many interesting, to me, different locations and different people involved, and I want to know what happened because I wasn't taught any of that in school. There's the old saying that history is written by the victors, and that's true. But when you start, dicing it up and you see everything, it interests me. So Patton is a brilliant military mind, and the trouble is that nobody liked him. He couldn't get along with people. He was really blunt and harsh, and he used a lot of profanity. What today would just, oh my goodness. It was even so back then, and we're talking about 1940 and thereabouts. The upper brass, Eisenhower, military leader, they didn't like him. He was just so rough around the edges. And because Patton was a bit of a buffoon and kind of, loudest guy in the room and take charge like a bull in a china closet, right? There was an incident where he slapped two soldiers. One of them was suffering from malaria and the other one was suffering from shell shock, what they now call PTSD, because that's a nicer term than shell shock, which is what it was. So Patton slapped this kid, this soldier, and it was like, your problems in your head. You need to get back to your unit and get back to fighting. I ain't got time for this nonsense, which is totally out of line, wrong. I mean, like I said, the one guy had malaria. He's near death, and he gets slapped by a commander and told in essence that he's a wussy and he needs to get back to fighting because that's what we need you for. I didn't realize there was two accounts. Apparently shortly after, they slapped another kid around who had shell shock and was broken now in the mind from the horrors that he'd seen. And what's his help is he gets slapped. That's totally wrong. Don't misunderstand me here. But in matters of military logistics and tactics, Patton was a genius. But like I said, they didn't like him. He was often given secondary commands and kind of kept back and didn't get promotions, didn't get the big operations, even though it came at a cost of tens of thousands and sometimes maybe hundreds of thousands of lives. The big brass didn't care. He's not one of us. He uses harsh language. He says the quiet parts out loud. We don't like him. He doesn't make us feel. He's not one of us, you see. The trouble with that is they needed him. At one point, Eisenhower discussed with one of the other top ding-dongs about relieving Patton of his duty, just basically pushing papers and get him out of the war thing, get him out of the headlines. And they had this big meeting of the decision makers. And the guys in the know said, we are going to need him before this is all over. Yet they continuously kept him in the rear. At one point, out of 400,000 gallons of diesel and gasoline, they gave Patton and his unit 15,000 gallons. So he's hung up, he's stuck. So what does he do? Comes out in the media and says, you slow things down, you're costing lives. We can't have that in the media, but it's the truth. And we come to the point of the video, which is competency. I've seen it in my personal life. I've seen it in my professional life. The people that are in charge oftentimes are not competent, but they belong in this club that uses the right words and tells little lame jokes and everybody around them knows it isn't funny, but they all chime in. Oh, see, so now we're all comfortable with each other, and that's the important thing. But I would disagree. Where the rubber meets the road, you're going to need competency. You're going to need people that can get things done. I don't necessarily care how you feel. You can be anything you want to be. You can have any identity that you want to have. You can have any position you want to have. If you start pushing it on me, you're going to get pushback, and hard. Be that as it may, you do whatever you want to do. But what you're seeing, and what I often found out, was that these people were incompetent in the base functions of their job. So when there was a problem, and they might have been called on the carpet for it, they start the deflection, pointing finger. Well, Susan gave that to me, and Susan didn't do it. And she's only saying that because I'm identify as this, that, and the other thing. Has nothing to do. You're not comparing apples to apples here. You're comparing apples to peanuts and TV dinners. It's deflection, it's sidetrack. And the base point is, can you do your job or not? Do you have competency? Do you know what you're doing? I have very little patience and tolerance. One of my biggest phrases when I ran crews and stuff was, do you need me to draw a picture? I can probably come up with some Crayolas. I don't have time to sit and hand lead you and make sure you're feeling good. And well, Dalton uses harsh language to me, and it doesn't make me feel good. I'm not interested in your feelings. Are you competent or are you not? We are coming into a world, we're already there, but it's going to get worse and worse, where the men of competency, and I'm not really including myself in this because I'm old. I'm talking more to the younger people. The men of competency are going to be needed to keep the machines running, to keep the vehicles on the road, a basic form of survival, to keep bellies fed. And that takes men of competency. You can have all the feelings you want. You can be as great at communication as ever there was. But that doesn't put food in bellies. It doesn't keep the machines running. You need people of competency. And they need you. If you go back there and watch the video that I did called Tradesman, it talks somewhat about this elite class. And boy, they got all these plans and none of them are good for the average individual. But it's going to be supreme dominance in the elites, they're called, which I vehemently disagree with. Whatever the case, you're going to have some level of competency to run the systems. And these so-called elites, if you were elites, you wouldn't need us people, the competent ones that know how to get things done. That right there shows you there's nothing elite about them. Maybe your speech, that's about it. And even that is questionable. What happens to guys? I mean, Patton was different. He ended up being killed. But guys like that, guys like a Nikola Tesla, did a video on him. These men of competence after they're needed and extracted from them what has to be. They're just discarded, just pushed to the background, get back in your place. We don't need you now. Temporarily. But they always come calling back. We need men of competence. So if you are one of these men or women, just hang tight. Your time is quickly coming. They'll be calling, and they'll be paying accordingly. Hey, thanks for watching. I do appreciate your time. If you want to put a comment in there, they're always welcome. Like the interaction and the different thoughts on things. Thank you again. See you next time.